Starting to the bottom left of Whirlwind, down one game in this best of 3 already. The Startail player.
Startail Curious.
He started in game number 1 with a double hatch before gas and pool. Really greedy build, took a risk there, was rewarded in the early game, but lost it in the end to the Protoss to the top left.
CJ enters Sora.
Sora with great decision making in the first game. His record against Zerg is absolutely stellar. Hasn't lost a game against Zerg or a map against Zerg in 15 maps played now. So he's just continuing his streak here.
Yeah, it really is incredible to watch him work. And I mean, right now it looks like he's poised to take the 2-0. Whirlwind is a big map, not the easiest map to play Protoss versus Zerg on, but if he plays the game like we saw already in Game 1, just with a solid defense, then it could definitely lead to that 2-0.
It's just incredible to see him currently being offline against Zerg at a 15-2-0 record on maps against Zerg. That is insane. That is absolutely insane, especially if you consider the players that he faced. Players like Soulkey, Curious several times. And as mentioned before, he took down opponents like Shine, like JKS. It's really impressive to see him at work here. And this time Curious actually, he's taking his hatch first, but then he goes straight into the pool. He doesn't go for the double hatch before pool again.
Yeah, playing it a little bit safer this time. But, you know, as has been the trend a lot of the time, in fact, I would say it's definitely like 90% of games we're seeing right now. No Forge. It's going Gateway Expand, so the hatchery first still makes sense here. But he's playing it just a little bit safer. Now, Sora doing the 2-in-2 gas here, as highlighted by our observer. Means he gets a little bit better mineral income, which will lead to a faster Nexus.
For Sora, we once again have the lack of scouting here, so he does not see that we have this third base now coming up pretty early in the game. And usually, if as a Zerg player you are facing a gateway opening, your third base is also one of your weak spots. This is why Zerg try to figure out a little bit more what kind of drone count you actually need to be able to defend against 3-gate aggression. But, as I already said, Sora without scouting so far. On a map like this big, he probably just thinks, okay, I'd rather have the mining time if I scout in the wrong direction. The scout itself won't help me all that much. But he just feels very confident in his own build orders and his abilities in the mid-game to win the game.
Yeah, you know, with a gateway type opening like we see here from Sora also, you're not really too worried about early pools. So, that's another thing to consider. But Curious's build here is pretty solid, especially because of the positions. Had his Sora been at bottom right, for example, the third base is a lot more exposed to a ground attack. Now if he wants to attack the third, he has to go a little bit further. Could attack the natural and try to go for a force seal on the ramp, though. We've seen that a lot. But he's going to have to scout first. Now he knows the position based on the Overlord scout. So
yeah, Overlord this time is doing his job and not going to die to it. And we also have the Stalker moving out. It will live this time. No speed just yet for Curious. Hasn't been started. He doesn't take gas. So the Stalker will not be in the position where he has to fight against speedlings. But we have those two Lings now trying to get into the main base and getting a little bit of scouting done.
Yeah, using the probes here actually. He could have force fielded that out, but he barely kills it. Nice!
Pretty close.
Yeah. I guess he really knows how much DPS that sentry does. Did he accidentally shoot his Overlord there for a second?
Curious is actually getting 10, 12 Zerglings right now. He does not have speed, so I'm pretty interested to see what exactly he's going to do with those. I think he's a little bit afraid that he might be attacked pretty soon with a couple of gateway units.
Yeah, and that's a reasonable concern to have, especially now that the Stalker is coming over here and taking a peek. He actually could kill the Queen if... Yeah, actually I think he will be able to kill the Queen easily with a Mothership Courier. But he's going to lose the Stalker for it, most likely.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I think he's still going to get caught.
Yeah, he should be. I mean, that was no way. So he's trading a Queen against the Stalker, but also the drones are now being attacked. And the Lings are on their way to the top left, trying to do at least something. Mothership Core has to pay attention, though, since another Queen is already joining the battle.
Yeah, he may actually lose that Mothership Core if he doesn't micro perfectly here. Forces a few cancels, and now he could probably just recall home.
Yeah, and we have also the Zerglings on the way to the top left now, but there are already 4 sentries, so shouldn't have a problem here defending his base, even without the cannon.
Yeah, definitely not. Easy peasy there. And the Roach Warren being about a tenth of the way done here. And Curious is just playing this safe. I do not think he's going to commit like we saw last game, because this is not the map where you see Protoss players taking a fast third base. He's just going to relax here get his upgrades out for his roaches. That's why we see the evolution chamber, and continue to scout that third base timing. That's exactly why this Zergling is here, and it will see the Nexus being constructed.
Yeah.
A bit of a mistake actually by Sora to just show that like that.
Ling already in position, and very much the same move out that we saw from Sora in game number 1 already. The Sentry Force just moving out, trying to secure the third base as much as he can, and without Curious having speed, there are not a lot of options for the Zerg player to really barrel down on that third. Instead, he's teching into lair, the Roach Warren is already completed, and in comparison to the last game, we have Curious already on a much better drone count. He's already up to 60, gonna build a few more pretty soon to saturate those bases properly. But at this point in time, his economy is already much, much stronger than in game number 1.
Yeah. Consider that this opening for Sora is almost identical, just that the Nexus is a little bit later and it's a little bit more exposed initially here. But he's doing the same build where he gets a lot of sentries out early, makes a gateway wall at his third base, gets +2 in Blink right when that Twilight Council finishes, adding a lot of gateways, more than last game on the other hand, a little bit quicker. So I don't think he's going to hit a timing with this, but he's going to be pretty easily defended against any sort of Hydra Roach aggression that we're going to see coming up pretty soon. Robo, though, on the other hand, is a little bit late as a result.
Yeah, the problem that Sora might have here is that area of effect damage is going to come into play for him very late in the game in comparison. So the Hydralisks will definitely have the time to shine here if Curious decides to attack. One of the things that you want to have as a Protoss player to deal with the Hydralisks is either Colossi or Storm. But in this scenario, Curious could really put them to some use, and he's already getting the first few of them. Doesn't go for range or speed just yet, but we have him with a 4th base already building. And the Protoss player is a little bit reluctant to really commit here. Moving into the middle of the map, trying to clear the Zalnaga Watchtower, and that's about it for now. Sora just wants to have his own third, really safe and sound, and then play it from there.
Yeah. What's interesting to me is that he's getting the Dark Shrine instead of getting the Robotic Support Bay, so that's going to delay his tech, his AoE that you were talking about a little bit more.
We have a massively fast Hive tech, by the way.
Yeah.
Going into Hive at 10 minutes into the game.
I think he's going to go, obviously straight for those Vipers, but he doesn't get the range upgrade for his units, rather he gets the melee one, so that's interesting to me. One thing to note also is Curious takes the Smart Fourth, the one that's further away from Sora, so that's much harder for Sora to actually go over there and try to attack it by ground and then run away or recall away.
Curious is setting himself up for the late game here, and I really like this choice. Going into the fast Hive Tech gives him a lot of options. He could in the late game go for Ultralisk with the upgrades that he's currently researching. He has a lot of options here, and even the mid game with the Hydralisk, he should be completely safe against any kind of attack that his opponent can throw against him. I feel that he's not going to do anything about the third base anytime soon. He most likely will just try to prevent maybe a 4th base and just get his own tech up here. And with the economy that he has, 77 harvesters already, you can see that he takes the edge here in the income.
I do not know, actually, if Sora saw the Hive Tech.
I think he did. I think we had a Phoenix Scout at the bottom left, which was shown earlier on screen. Pretty sure that he got an inkling.
Okay, well that's good for him. He does actually add the second Robo, so that's great for the possibility of Ultralisk, because he will want to switch into double Immortal, and that's exactly what we're going to see here. There's the Ultralisk Cavern. DT harassment here, going to do a little bit, but not going to be massively damaging. And in fact, he's already scouted. He starts Spores. This guy, Curious, is so good at defending these DTs.
Yeah, he definitely is. One of the things that we have to keep in mind here, on the other hand, is that with the Colossi that we have now, Curious is going to most likely produce a couple of Vipers to deal with them. And we do not have the Templar Archive, which means that we have no opportunity for the Protoss player to get High Templars into the game for the feedbacks that he would like to have against Vipers. Of course, he can always do a lot with good Blings, but Blings are always a little bit iffy if you have a very strong ground army against you.
Well, this looks really silly, but no kills there on that DT. It looks like he's just waiting for a 4th base, or rather a 5th base to come down for Curious so they can snipe. +3 on the way here for Sora is starting to look really, really scary, as we only have +2 Carapace now halfway done. And he will need to switch to Immortals fairly soon, but it looks like he's going to go up to 5 or 6 Colossi before he does it, just based on those Qs here.
Curious is doing a pretty good job with his upgrades, the upgrades for the units. His +2 Baton to Armor upgrade, as you already mentioned, is only halfway done, and he didn't add the second attack upgrade or the first range upgrade. But he goes immediately for Chitinous Plating. We have him now with the speed and the range upgrade for the Hydralisk, so he's getting all those unit upgrades out. And at this point, he's nearing 200 supply, and that's the point in time where he's starting to build up this bank that he can then use to get the upgrades out much faster.
Sora is waiting here a little bit, as if he's not sure whether he wants to make any more Colossi or not. Now starts to warp in units.
Well, we have him with the Templar Archive by now, so now he has the opportunity to also work against Vipers. The Vipers currently being built by Curious, and with his Storm upgrade, of course, he can also do a lot of damage to the Hydralisks here. But now he doesn't really need it, since we have with the Colossi a great opportunity for him to do a lot of damage. But that 4th base is going to come into play now for the Protoss players.
Yeah, Curious needs to respond to this in some way. One thing that I find really interesting about the composition of Sora is that he's reluctant to make Immortals. He's not making them at all. He's going to get Archons very soon, but it looks like he wants to rely on Archons for AoE and, kind of blocking the Ultras rather than getting those Immortals, which I can understand because of the Hydralisk count, but the Hydras are going to melt in seconds to those Colossi. He will need some Immortals, I feel, to deal with these Ultras, especially with all this Carapace coming out here. The Kaitina's playing, you mentioned before.
What I like about Curious' composition, by the way, is that he does not really overcommit too many units of one kind. He has a very nice composition here. Could yank that? Yep, he yanks it in, and the Warp Prison is, of course, going down to the rest of the army. This is a pretty cool composition that he has. And Curious is now taking his 5th base as well. So he's really working up this bank that we discussed earlier. And now going back into double upgrades, as we can currently see on the production tab. Even adding the upgrades for air units, which will allow him to later on add Corruptors, go for a Mutalisk switch, depending on which kind of road the game goes down.
Yeah, this is looking really, really scary here. Curious's army is so strong. 4 Vipers ready to go. He's going to need great feedbacks here. A few Lings wasted, on the other hand. 4 cannons definitely not going to be enough here, but here comes that Protoss army. And actually, the Ultra's a little bit caught here. He's going to be careful of the Vipers. He's too scared to engage. He just lets him have it.
Sora doesn't want to go up that ramp. If there are blinding clouds, he really doesn't want to go there. The High Templars at the front trying to go for the feedbacks, moving in, and here come the feedbacks. 1, 2, 3, go down. Here comes the last Viper. The blinding cloud is good. The rest of the Zerg army immediately moving in, but Curious losing a lot of supply, but he took down that oh so important 4th base.
But the question is, was it worth it? He lost so many Ultras. I think he had to do it. 5 Ultras on the way. If he can buy enough time to get those out, he will have made that worth it for sure. But that's the question that we're going to have answered here. Can he buy that time?
Exactly. The army supply is going to be exactly the same once again, and the Protoss army in this scenario is really, really scary. Here comes Sora, and we saw already earlier that his unit control is impeccable. Curious is getting another base now, but he needs to defend against this. This is going to be the big question. Will those blinding clouds be good enough? There are no High Templars this time. There are currently not a single feedback that he can use against them. Only 1 yank on the other hand.
Where are the Ultras? They're not ready yet. They're about to pop. There they are right now coming through. The Stalkers on the other hand can easily target them. Great yank on that Colossus. Ultras coming from the back with the Immortal firepower might just be too much, and it looks like Sora has done it.
The Immortal's doing a lot of damage here. The army supply is still exactly the same. We have 8 additional Ultralisks coming in, and even the drones are being pulled to tank a couple of those shots, but the number of Hydralisks are already going down. The Hydra's trying to snipe as many of the Immortals as they possibly can to give the Ultralisks a fighting chance once they pop into the game, but Sora might be able to clench out a victory even before that happens.
Yeah, there's just so much firepower to armored units with the Immortals. All the Stalkers here, the Ultras can be targeted down. They can be one-shot basically at this point, as you saw there. And it looks like that's going to be all she wrote. There's just way too much firepower in this Protoss army, way too much reinforcements, and that's it. GG.
GG, and Sora, he takes it with a 2-0. Curious moves in, takes down the 4th of his opponent, loses 50 supply in the process, and Sora mercilessly makes his way to the bottom left of the map and takes the victory before the Startail Zerg player can stabilize again.
You can see as Adrenaline pumping, even his hand shaking there while he's drinking his Bakari Sweat, but he closed the bottle and then opened it instantly. He's really thirsty. You can see, like, even though Curious is his worst matchup and Sora is incredible in the matchup, Curious did give him a run for his money. Some really good decision making, great builds. I like his strategies.
I definitely agree. I feel like Curious played a lot better than he did in the recent Protoss matches, or matches against Protoss that we saw him play. So that was a good attempt. His big problem really that the draw for the first round was very unlucky. Sora is these days a huge fan favorite, and he just showed why.
Yeah, his control was impeccable, and his decision making when it came to battles, how to engage them, when to back up and not engage, the swipe, even little things like the snipe on the Queen in the early game in Game 2, those things can turn the tide of a game in seconds. So really just great control of the battles. I think that's the most impressive thing for me in that game.
Yeah, the only thing that Curious could have maybe done a little bit better is building those units a bit faster. If he could have stabilized and just forced that Protoss army back a little bit more, then he would have had the opportunity to rely on 6 spaces in total against 3.
Yeah.
He had a huge bank. His problem was just like production, getting those units out and also in position, because Sora was already so much in his face that he could never really assemble all his units in one spot and just get them into a proper position to attack that Protoss army.
Exactly. So we are going to have a 5-minute break, I believe, before we go into our next Protoss versus Zerg.
Exactly. Then we have Live going up against Trust, so another Startail Zerg player trying to defeat a Protoss, and in 5 minutes we are going to show you if he's able to accomplish that, or if Live is also going down and both Startail players will lose today and go back to Code B. So see you guys in a few.